Hi everyone and welcome to the C++ tutorial number 4 hosted by Murex the coder. I do believe that you have been enjoying the first 3 tutorial videos and we shall continue in this video. So let's discuss what we'll be talking about. So we're just going to cover methods associated with the data type that we discussed in the very first video, which are strings. You will recall from our discussion that I mentioned that a string is it's a sequence of characters, right? So one might define that as an array of characters as well, meaning that we have an array with characters inside that array, and we'll discuss a bit about arrays in the next tutorial video where we're going to be discussing methods as well, because it's not good enough for us to just write a program with all those conditional statements and repeating ourselves over and over again. So we are gonna discuss methods which allows us to define a certain code or a certain code that does a certain action, and we can do that action multiple times by not redefining the code or the method, by not redefining the code itself or rewriting the code itself, but by just calling that function that does the method that we need. For instance, if you want a method for, let's say you just want to create a calculator, right? So you have addition, division, subtraction, and multiplication. So do you want to always have a code that adds each and every time you want to add, each and every time you want to divide, each and every time you want to multiply? Nope. You just want to have a function that does addition, subtraction, all those methods, right? And then you will see these becoming handy when we talk about defining our own files. So you can define a calculator file and just import that in your program, and then you perform addition without recoding that. So one might be thinking, but there won't be a case of me rewriting the code for addition. I can just use a loop, then I have my condition. Cool. But what if you want to write a different program that requires a subtraction, but then you want it to be different? Are you still gonna have your conditions and rewrite your methods or your code or algorithm for addition, subtraction, and all that? That's way too much. Define a library and just import the library to access the methods. Just as this string, right? You're gonna import a library for the string, and then you'll be able to access the methods associated with string. Cool. So let's head over to the discussion, right? So string methods, right? So we're gonna discuss just few, as I mentioned. So a couple of things that we want to do is I'm trying to find a proper way of explaining where we would need the method for adding two strings or joining two strings into one. So say you want to manipulate a string, right? So you know that a string, it's an array. Oh, and I haven't spoken about arrays yet, so that's why this is a bit not easy for me to explain, but I will just explain it anyway. So you have an array, and this array has these items of characters, right? And then you want to manipulate those characters. For instance, you want to swap the cases, right? I know in some cases you do have a method that does that for you, but then what if you want to do it yourself using the basic tools you have, because someone else used the tools they had to create that method? But what if you don't want to use that method as it is, but you want to fully understand how it does it, right? So you want to swap the cases, right? So you will want to create an empty string and add those characters. But then you're going to use another method or the conditions in your method, right? For instance, you're going to check if the character is uppercase. If it's uppercase, you're going to convert it to lowercase. If it's lowercase, you're going to convert it to uppercase. Once you're done, you add it to the string that you're building, and then a new string will appear. So whenever you call a method and pass the string, it will return a swapped case string, right? But I think we'll also cover this when we get to the problem solving sessions, because it's not really enough to just get the theory. We have to fully understand the whole concepts, how do you apply them, and we're not gonna just learn barely that. We have to also know how to test our programs, which we will discuss in future tutorials, and also how we can apply all these methods that we've learned in real life applications, right? We'll talk about that. Cool. So to add two strings together, you have two strings, right? You have the first string and the second string. So you define your first string and assign it to a variable, right? So I just use the variable that refers to the first string, and then I say dot. So that's the method. I'm going to use the dot method. And then if you are on an IDE, the methods will pop up, but since I use Vim, it won't pop up. So I have to know exactly the method that I want and the action. Actually, I have to just know what action I want, and then I will know which function to use, right? If you're learning it that way. But then if you're learning in such a way that you let an IDE just do everything for you, well, the method will just appear, and then you just have to select instead of you knowing what method you need. So in this case, it's going to be append, then open parenthesis, and then you have a second string, and then a closing parenthesis, right? That's you getting the two strings added together. We'll apply this when you get to the coding part of this tutorial. Now we have say we want to get the length of a string, right? You want to get the length of a string. So you define a string and assign it a variable. I know I assigned it in a wrong or illegal variable, because this is a keyword for defining a string, so I can't use that, right? So it's string dot length. But since this is the slides, the compiler won't have an argument or a fight with me that you have created an illegal variable based on our discussion in the very first tutorial video, right? So this is just a variable referring to a string, right? And then it's a dot method again, and then this time around you know what you want. You want the length, right? If you're using NADI, you just select. Cool. Now let's discuss the last one, which is going to be comparing two strings. So we want to compare strings to see if they are equal or not. And I know this might be a bit challenging for one to actually understand as to how does the program actually knows that these two strings are the same. What is really happening under the hood? I know we haven't discussed about skitable. When we do the problem solving, we'll get to discuss the skitable, or actually I'll just create a video for skitable before we get to the problem solvings, so that you get to understand, because the problem solving are just there to establish the understanding of all the concepts that we have been learning. It's not good enough for us to just learn the theory and not know how to use this concept. So we must hone our skills, improve ourselves in such a way that we'll be able to apply these skills on an advanced level. And then we'll be able to come up with ideas and programs we want to create. Yeah, we will reach that point. So cool. So this method, you have your first string, and then you're going to use dot method again, and then what you're going to do now is you're going to compare the two, right? You're going to compare. So you're going to use compare, which makes it obvious you're comparing. Then open parentheses, and then your second string, and then close parentheses. And you are done in terms of the theory. Now let's head to our terminal, or you can head over to your IDE. I just prefer terminal. And then let's close this tab. Okay, let's improve this. I wonder why I haven't reactivated my keys, because I was just going to use Control++, but yeah, we'll check it up later. So mk drc++ tutorial number 4, right? There we go. And then I get to that folder. Cool. So there goes my Vim. Let me just call this string.cpp. And here we are. So the first thing we do is to set up, right? So we have include io stream, and then we include I don't know if we discussed this before, of including there we go, of including a string library. And I did mention that we're going to talk about this, and we are going to talk about this. We are heading towards there. Cool. And then this is int main. Upon successful compilation, it will return 0, and then it should be successful. Cool. So what we're talking about first is string concatenation. Second, length of the string. And last but not least, compare two strings. There we go. Comparing two strings, right? Cool. So let's start it off with the string declaration. Why is it the morning? I wonder. So we have first string, right? So the first thing is the keyword string. I know it's not changing color in this case in mine. Sometimes it doesn't. I'm not so sure if the IDE world, because I haven't really used an IDE. Have I? I wonder, because I don't know. I learned my C++ just on Vim. Yeah, and I know it was a bit intense, but it had to be an intense training because I had a short period of time to learn. Due to that, it was just a small holiday, and I wanted my holidays to be more productive, so I had to use the hard way of learning. And yeah, I think I only used Vim, but yeah, I'm gonna check out the IDEs because I still have to improve on the testing side, because how I've been doing it is just through Vim. But it's not just Vim. Sometimes you wanna create you wanna have some dependencies. I don't know, I haven't really tried that, but we'll see. Cool. So this is string, and then we have the first name, right? So name 1. Let's just call this Murex. Name 2. The string 3, and then you will see why we need the string 3, or why I have strings 3. Cool. I'm just gonna create up my YouTube channel name. Cool. There we go. So we forgot something. I'm beginning to wonder if out, but I don't have my definition. So namespace std that allows us to just use here out as it is, and I will discuss those concepts in future tutorials. So it's name1 dot append, right? And then I have name2. This is what I explained from the slides. You have the first string dot, and then you choose the method append, right? And then parentheses, and then your second string. Let's open a new tab, and we're gonna use the G++ compiler, which we have string. There we go. Just call it Murex. There we go. There we go. Murex there, right? Cool. Because I concatenated the two. But what if I wanna concatenate the whole of this with the other one, right? The third string. So you will see that what if you do this dot append and then name3. Do you think this is gonna work? Do you think this is not gonna work? Let's try it out, and let's just simplify our life. There we go. There we go. It worked. But how? Now remember, string methods are accessed. As long as you have a string and you use a dot method, you will access the methods in that string. So the first part creates a string which is composed of string 1 and string 2, but it's still a string. And then you add the third string, so it's append. So you can have append and continue and continue and continue. As long as you create a string, you can append. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. So you can create a method that keeps appending. So you see what you have there, right? You can create a method we're gonna discuss the method in the next tutorial. And that method, what it does, it appends for you. You're going to be using the same method like string, right? But in that case, your method is going to have a parameter. The parameter is the new created string, and the string that you want to add, which is the new one. And then just keep on appending and appending. So you're going to return the new append string, right? We'll discuss that in future tutorials and explain how one can actually accomplish that. But that's your append, right? You can have many append. As long as you understand what's happening, what's the outcome, the data type that you are having, because a method associated with the string will always work on any string as long as it's a string. Cool. Now let's head over to our second method. Cool. And then say you want name1 dot, right? This time around you want the length, right? You want the length, and then you end line. Cool. If I run this, I'll get the length, which is 13. So we have 13 from name1. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Do you see what just happened? He said name1 dot length, but he gave you the length of all those. Why? Because we concatenated all of those. So when you access this, it will give you that length. So what happens if I access say name2? Would that be the case? Three? Nope, that's not the case. Why? Remember when I said that you're going to create an empty string and then concatenate on top of the string? In this case, what happened is that this was used as the base string and then it got appended this. So after this statement was executed, or after this, whenever this statement is executed, that string is no longer just that string, it's that string plus the string. And then you add this, it keeps going. But these two remains as they are. This one is the one that gets to be added items to. I hope that makes sense. Cool. The other thing I want to talk about is the alias of length. So it's the same name, or is the name given, it's a different name given to the method that gets the length of a string, but it does the same thing. So in alias, it's more like a name that is given to a certain name. So for instance, I don't know how to explain this one because it's confusing, but an alias, right, is the name that you give to a method. So instead of them referring to length method as just length, they also implemented a way to just refer to that same method as size. I hope that makes sense. So instead of using length, you can just use size. So if it's written, and let's see if the compiler will be happy. Yeah, the compiler is happy. Cool. Let's discuss the last method, which is comparing the two strings. Cool. So when you compare two strings, right, there's something that you have to keep track of, which I've also mentioned in this previous discussion, that whenever you use a method, that method will return something, right? So when you compare two strings, the method was designed to return an integer. But what integer is that? It's 0. Now you will understand why they say successful compilation returns 0, not successful is 1, right? So in this case, right, our compiler, no, our method, right, for comparing, if it returns 0, the two strings are equal. So for instance, right, let's just print out. So since name1 has been added items, let's just use name2 and name3. So name2 dot compare, right? Compare, and then we have name3, right? End line. Ooh, let's add L. There we go. So if I was to run this program, I'm clearing. If I was to run this program, you will see that this is the number that gets returned. So whenever you're comparing two items, when you want to check if the item, if you're comparing two strings and you want to check if the two strings are equal, you must check that whatever gets returned is 0. Then the two strings will be equal. Let's just try it out, then we end this discussion. Cool. So if name2 dot compare name3, right, is equals to 0, and then let's say equal, yeah, and then since using a string, we have a courtesy to just use, or the advantage of using that instead of just using end line, or else not equals. There we go. And then let's do this. There we go. So if we run this, yeah, the strings are not equal because they don't return 0. And then if I was to change the strings, say change that one to coda, will they be the same? Yeah, strings are equal. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and please do go and practice to improve yourself. The more you practice, the more you improve. The more you practice, the more you get to learn more things that are hidden, because when it comes to code, you can never really know everything. But then if you are that kind of a programmer that keeps on exploring and exploring and exploring, you get to discover things, right? You get to discover more and more and lots of things, and you add that in your toolbox. And whenever you find yourself writing a certain program that requires a certain tool, if you have it in your toolbox, you'll easily just take it from your toolbox and successfully solve the problem. But that's it from me, guys, and I shall see you next week Tuesday. Enjoy.